Bohemia Regent Prezident.
And remember, life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. This is a beer from the Czech Republic and it is the Bohemia Regent Prezident. This comes from a brewery which is based in a place called Trebon, which is in the south of the Czech Republic, from the Bohemia region as it is known. And this is a beer which is from one of the oldest breweries, certainly in the Czech Republic, and one of the oldest breweries in Europe. They've been going since 1379. And as far as I know, and that's been that's been uninterrupted since 1379. And I think the only other country that can compare with that is obviously Germany, having the oldest brewery in the world. But there's a few 14th century breweries in Germany as well, which are just as old as that, but certainly nothing in the UK. But it has got quite a good reputation, and they do contract brewing for Marks and Spencer's. And I have got a beer in the fridge which I really want to compare with the Marks and Spencer's Czech Pilsner, because I want to see if it's the same beer that's just been rebadged. And the reason I want to do that is because they did do that in Sainsbury's with Staropramen, with the Sainsbury's Czech Pilsner, and that was amazing. Have a look on my channel, just do a search for Sainsbury's and you'll see that. Anyway, this stuff is from that brewery, and it is the Prezident stuff, which is a special lager beer, as they call it. Now, it is quite heavily hopped. I've been looking at the hops that are in here, and I'll go into them in the next section, but it's quite heavily hopped, and they've called it a special lager. And there's some people that would call that a Pilsner, but they've called it a traditional Czech beer. Pale, and you know, Budvar is not a Pilsner, Budvar is a pale lager, and I'm thinking this is what this type of thing is gonna be. Now, there is quite a bit of information on the brew sheet on this, so I want to get onto that section rather than hang about on this one. If you want to see or you want to listen to a history of the brewery, check out the other Marks and Spencer's Pilsner that I did, because I would go over the history of this brewery in that video. So, without further ado, let's get on to what this beer is all about. Okay, it is a 6% beer. It is a 500ml can. They also do this in bottles as well. It came from the House of Trembling Madness. It was £2.40. I actually ordered this online. I didn't buy it when I went there. So it has quite a few hops in here. Firstly, I'll get onto the malt. It is using Bohemian Pilsner malt. Perfectly acceptable. Well, it's not even acceptable. It is the standard malt used in most Czech beers. Not all of them, but most of them. Pilsner malt, of course. And the hops that are involved in this are quite extensive. They use Saaz hops. Obviously, that is a noble hop. That is, I would say, one of the most common hops in the Czech Republic. In fact, I wouldn't say it is. It is. It's a fact. That is the most common hop variety in the Czech Republic. But there are others, and they use a hop called Kazbek, which is quite a new style aroma hop that was formulated in the Czech Republic, and it's quite a new hop. It's only been going since 2008, and it's like a very intense Saaz hop. So whatever you're getting from the Saaz hop, with the addition of the Kazbek hop, it is even more intense. Now, the traditional flavours you would associate with Saaz hops are earthiness, spiciness, and some very light herbal notes. The Kazbek hop has got that in abundance, and it's quite intense, and as I say, it is an aroma hop, so I'd imagine that would be thrown into the boil quite late on. I'll get onto the boil in a minute. It also uses Hercules hops, which I think is a German variety that has notes of pepper, spice and orange, and it's used in quite a few German wheat beers. I've noticed that some of the top Munich brewers use Hercules hops in their wheat beers. Now you can argue that you can't taste the hops in wheat beer, but that's what they use. I know Schneiderweiss use Hercules hops in some of their wheat beers. Then you've got Aurora hops, which are a type of noble hop, but they're not a noble hop, if you know what I mean. They have earthiness and spiciness to them, as well as aniseed and tea. Not seen it too much in English beer, but they use them sometimes in dark beers, continental dark beers. It's not widely, I've not seen it widely used. Also, I've not seen it widely advertised on brew sheets, but it is a hop variety. And they're the hops. Now, I said I was going to get onto the boil. They use a technique which is called double mashing, and that is a type of decoction and infusion mash. So what is that? Well, basically they separate two mashes. They put the adjuncts, a very little bit of malt and hops into one mash, and then the usual stuff, the hops and the malt, into another mash. Obviously the yeast goes into both, and then they combine the two. They're boiled in different copper kettles, and then they're added afterwards. And it's quite a lengthy process, and they also have they make a big point of having a very long lagering time as well, which of course is going to make the beer purer and just give it a little bit more flavour. So with that in mind, I really could do with a drink. Okie dokie, 500ml cans. Do you remember them? None of this 440ml bollocks that you're still paying 500 for, like you're getting some of the beers over here. Now it's got Prague Regent on here. This beer doesn't come from Prague. This is from, as I say, the south of the Czech Republic, in a place called Trebon, which is quite a way away from Prague. But that's where we are. And it's 38 IBUs in this, so it's quite bitter. Now that's what I'd expect from a Czech Pilsner or a Pilsner beer. But 38 IBUs is quite bitter. That's bordering on sort of West Coast style IPA bitterness. There it is in the glass. It's a little bit of an amber, got a little bit of an amber hint to it. So you can see there's some lightly roasted malts in there. On the nose, wow, very grainy. And sweet as well. Not much hop character, which is unusual. I thought there'd be more. It's really sweet. I'm wondering whether there's sugar in this. Let me see what it's got on this. I should have read the ingredients out, shouldn't I? Ingredients, I haven't got it in English, have they? Water, barley malt, hops. This is pasteurised, served chilled. Well, that's it. Alcohol content 6%, volume 500ml, average energy 100ml. Fucking energy. The last thing I want to be doing is running around after a load of fucking beer. So yeah, it doesn't really give. There's no sugar in it. It doesn't say it's got sugar, which is encouraging. That's about it, really. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Czech. The Regent Brewery is one of the oldest in the world and belongs to a cultural heritage of the Czech Republic. Brewery was established in 1379 in the castle of southern Bohemian town of Trebon, as I just mentioned. From the year 2000, Bohemia Regent is an independent family-owned brewery with more than 600 years of old... What the fuck is that word? History. Fucking hell. History of brewing by traditional Czech methods. Yeah, apparently this comes from an old recipe. Doesn't really mean much. Percy's terrorising someone down there, as he does. He's been farting all afternoon. It fucking stinks. I don't know what he's eating. Probably something he shouldn't have done. Either that or he's been at my beer. Probably the latter. That smells really sweet and very, very grainy. It's almost like there's a caramel to it. Yeah, there is. That's like a caramel malt. Interesting. Let's get it down the hatch. Sumvol. No, not Sumvol. I don't know what they say in the Czech Republic. And maybe I shouldn't speak German. I'll just say bottoms up. There you go. Oh, that's quite metallic and bitter. Oh, I'm not sure about this. It's really metallic. Wow, and it is bitter. That, when I said I couldn't get any hops, yeah, you really get that on the finish. This is like a Pilsner, but it's got that very metallic taste to it. Is it me just trying to get my palate adjusted to it? Because I'd be expecting something sweet, but I'm getting hot bitterness and metal. There is definite metallic notes on it, and they're quite big. There's a very intense bitterness on the finish, and that is from hops. That's alpha acid that's come from the hops, and it's really bitter, and it's giving it a very bitter finish. And I can see where them 38 IBUs came from now. That, as I say, we always say with IBUs, you have to take them in context with the beer. For a lager, 38 is very high. But I say it's very high. For a Czech Pilsner or one of the higher end Pilsners like Jever, the German, North German Pilsner, that's the extreme end of bitterness for a Pilsner, in my opinion. They call that a lager, and a special lager beer. And I'm looking on it, and at no point can I see the word Pilsner, but it says traditional Czech beer. Now I'm imagining that Czech Pilsner can only be made in Pilsen. I don't know. That's something I need to research. But I'm not sure about this. I can tell there's a reasonably good beer underneath that. It's got like a sweet malt on the palate, and then the finish is, I wouldn't say intensely bitter, but very bitter for a lager. So it sort of lulls you into a full sense of security. You get that nice sweet malt on the palate, but the finish is all about the hops. But there's a metallic note to it, and I'm not sure whether that's come from the can or whether it's in the, done in the brewing process. I'm imagining it's got something to do with the can, because, well, I could be wrong, but I can't imagine a brewery of that stature having that sort of metallic notes. Maybe it was my palate trying to adjust. Let me drink some more of this. I really want to get to the bottom of this, because I know I can taste there's a good beer underneath that. So let me see. And it's as I suspected. I think it was my palate trying to adjust, because now I'm getting nice sweet malt on that and an intensely bitter finish. The metallic note seems to have died down, and I think that's the way my palate works, because with a lager I wasn't expecting that amount of bitterness on there. Now there's not much citrus on there, there's not much pine, so there's no way you'd ever mistake this for an American style beer. There's no American hops in here, but the bitterness is, I wouldn't say it's intensely bitter, but it's, you know about it. There is a sweetness on it, on the palate when you first take the mouthful, and that sweetness is very malty. It's saying that there's no sugar in this, but I'm wondering whether there is. They're saying it isn't, but they used it in the Marks and Spencer stuff, and I'm wondering whether they've used it here, because there is a lot of bitterness on that finish. I mean, it's really intense Czech bitterness, if you know what I mean. And it's quite a good representation of what Czech Pilsner is, because Czech Pilsner, it does have a bitter finish, and all Pilsner should have a bitter finish to it. That's the whole point of Pilsner. That's where it differs from Helles. Helles is quite sweet, smooth, drinkable all the way down. Pilsner has got that bite, dry finish on the end. Yeah, I'm not sure. I really can't make my mind up about this. I can sense there is a good beer under there. Two things put me off. The first one is that metallic note that I got on the initial. I think that I really do think that was probably my palate trying to adjust. I really didn't expect that intense hot bitterness on the finish. Yeah, it's a Pilsner, so I should have been half prepared. It doesn't say it's a Pilsner on there, but it is. That's what I would call a Pilsner. It's made with Pilsner malt, so, and it's got the Sarts hops in it. Yeah. It's got that flavour. This is not like Budvar. Budvar is quite easy drinking. It's a pale lager, as they say, even though it is quite, well, it's more or less that colour. Possibly even darker. But it's quite smooth, very drinkable. This, you know what you're drinking. It's 6% as well. No trace of ethanol in there, which is good. Yeah, it's getting more agreeable now. I think I'd need to have about 2 or 3 cans of this to really appreciate this. It's sweet, and then comes the bitterness, and it's getting quite drinkable now. But it's taken that much for me to get my head around the flavours on it. I mean, it really did taste metallic, that first mouthful, but I think my palate's adjusted now, and it hasn't got that metallic tinge to it. So I'll let you off there, Bohemia Regent. I was all ready to rant and rave about your shitty brewing techniques, but no, this isn't bad. It's getting quite nice now. Very grainy, grassy, malty, but with that big bitter finish on the arse end. And that's just pure hop bitterness, and it's quite nice, quite drinkable as well. 6%, so you've got to treat it with a little bit of caution, but I quite like it now. It's going down quite nice, but it's taken that much for me to get my palate adjusted to it. So yeah, okay. So what is the verdict on Bohemia Regent Prezident? Yeah, this took some getting used to. Initial mouthful, taste buds were all over the fucking place with that. What I mistook for a metallic flavour, I think that was, well, I don't know what it was. It could have been some kind of metallic flavour on the first couple of mouthfuls. This is my first beer of the day. It is now 6:30. In the evening, not in the morning, and it took a lot of getting used to. My palate really did need to adjust to this. This is one beer that lulls you into a full sense of security. You've got the sweetness to start off with, but the intense bitterness. I mean, the alarm bell did ring when I saw the IBUs in it at 38 for a lager style beer or a bottom fermented beer. That is bitter, and yeah, it certainly does translate to the finish on this. But it is quite a decent beer. I don't mind it, actually. I'm getting used to it now. I'm getting the sweetness on the first mouthful, and then that big bitter finish. And once your palate adjusts to it, it goes down really nicely indeed. Now, I don't think your average lager drinker will be too enamoured with that. It's weird, you know, that finish. I can still get the hop bitterness on it now. There's 4 different types of hops in it, and they really do translate to the bitterness. The trouble is, you don't really get the flavours of the hop, you just get the bitterness from it on the arse end. But it is not bad. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. And it's one of them beers that it took me a while to get my head around what it was doing. But to sum it up, it's sweetness to start off with, malty type sweetness, quite sweet actually, but then big bitterness on the finish. And once you get your head around that, it goes down quite nice. I think I'd probably need about 2 or 3 cans of this to really appreciate the true flavour of it. Get the palate adjusted to that bitterness on the finish, and yeah, it'd be pretty decent. But it's not a bad beer, I will say that. Now, I was disappointed with the Marks and Spencer stuff. I'm going to do a comparison video. I've got some of their, what I think is the Marks and Spencer stuff, or what it's based on. I'm going to try that, compare the two, and see how they differ. I'm saving it up. It's been in the fridge for a while now. I need to get my fat arse around to Marks and Spencer's, but I'm such a lazy fucker, and it ain't cheap in there. Once you go in there, and they've got a good selection of beer as well, you know what I mean. So I've got to have a few quid on me when I go in there. I've got to buy a load of plasterboard for the studio. This is the fucking longest build ever. Usually because I'm fucking too busy drinking. It's stopped so many people achieving great things, but who gives a fuck anyway. So that is 7.5 out of 10. I recommend it with caution though. Give it till you're near the bottom of the glass to try and work it out. Don't take a mouthful and just think this is so bitter, it's not good. Persevere, your palate will adjust. And remember, beer is working class champagne.